You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
That stadium is going to be rocking, and heaven help whoever walks in there to play us.
Sustained effort and violence, you play your ass off.
You're watching the Pirate Preview on The Sports Objective. Join us every Tuesday night on YouTube Live as we're joined by beat writers and other media members as we take a look at what lies ahead for the Pirates. Now, here are the guys.
It is a first down. Pirates.
Welcome into the Pirate Preview as we get ready for a big week on the road again at Houston. In Houston, rather, against Rice is what I'm trying to say, the great city of Houston. And with us right now, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from the great city of LaGrange, as ZZ Top talks about, talking about Kyle Barber.
Yeah, I don't know how great it is. It's all right. What's going on, guys? I'm just sitting here on the Tuesday night as we look forward to playing the Owls this weekend. We've never won at Rice, just like Marshall had never won here. And so everybody kept talking about that. So I'm going to talk about how we've never won at Rice and see if we can't change that.
Let's make history. What's up, Bubba Rosenbaum?
Yeah, let's hope history changes Saturday night. Like Kyle mentioned, two very forgettable performances, or one that cost us an opportunity to play for a conference championship. But yeah, got a little momentum from last week, but like Matt said, moved on past that, and hopefully we can go get our first FBS win of the season Saturday night.
Semenza, what's up, man? I love the background, by the way. I love what you've done. That's an actual wall. At first, I'll tell people when I first saw that, I thought that it was like a Zoom call, like you had a fake background, but that's legit. So it looks really good.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's an actual wall. Appreciate that, Dave. Put some work into that one. But yeah, fellas, I tell you, I find myself in a funny mood today where I'm just all about business in terms of this football game. Like, I'm sick and tired of hearing about Gardner-Webb. I told you, I don't want to hear another word about Gardner-Webb. I don't want to hear coach speak. I don't want to hear about developing quarterbacks. I don't want to hear about indoor practice facilities. I just want to see this team go down to Rice and get a win. That's really kind of where I'm at today.
Hey, yeah, Matt, it's all about whether TCB. Elvis used to wear a chain. I don't know if you guys, I'm a big Elvis fan. It said TCB, and you know what it stood for?
Taking care of business in a flag.
Taking care of business, and that's what we get to do.
And he had a lightning bolt with the TCB.
There you go.
Taking care of business in a flash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barber. I tell you, I'm actually after the win, I enjoyed it, but then like we always talk about, I was about to say like Jimmy Buffett, come Monday, but Monday being yesterday, I was kind of like, okay, now it's time to really focus on Rice and. Will, the ultimate question for the roundtable, I guess we could get our great folks that are chiming in on Facebook and YouTube tonight. Will JT Daniels play? So I'll start with Kyle. What do you think? The quarterback for Rice.
I'm going to say, I'm going to say if he's 50-50, they'll play him. If he's 50-50, I think they'll play him. They're already 0-1 in conference. They, I think I'm gonna say if he's 50. But then at the same time, do you want to risk it and then lose him for the rest of the year? So come back to me, Bubba. What do you think?
Bubba,
I love it. Based on the intel I'm getting from JP Heath, the voice of the Rice Owls, who we'll hear from in our second half hour tonight.
Bubba's got intel.
According to JP, he will play, and that could be smokescreen, but based on what he was saying, he said it's highly probable that we'll see JT Daniels on Saturday night.
So what was the injury? Does he say, was it a high ankle sprain, just a regular ankle sprain? I mean, at one point he was crawling to the bench. So, I mean.
Yeah, honestly, do not recall.
Okay, so we may have to deal with old Danielson.
Matt Semenza, what do you think?
Semenza, I know what you're going to say. We should do.
Yeah, man, you know what's coming. I mean, listen, I think he is going to try to give it a go for sure, but I want to test that ankle early and often. If I'm Blake Harrell, I'm bringing major heat, major pressure at him right away in that game. Try to get him moving a little bit and really test that ankle. And I'm not suggesting in any way that we do anything dirty. So I want to make that clear. But I want to get after him and be physical with him and really test it out and see where he's at. Because, I mean, this guy's pretty dynamic. He's having a hell of a year. So obviously if, we can get him off his mark a little bit, it's going to help.
That's a great point, Matt. I hadn't even thought about. I've been focused so much on which of the quarterbacks would play, but then we saw on the message boards, like that means a lot from Rice, like you guys think, is that he will play. He's not practicing, but he will play. And
we haven't practiced yet. At some point in the week, they're going to have to try his ankle.
For me, I say he plays, but Semenza, you hit the nail on the head there. The way that our defense ramped it up last week, I can't say the team we played because we're moving past that, but the way we played last week.
Oh, good, man.
This week, I think I'm not going to pick on the defense because the defense has actually played pretty well for the most part this season. So if we have the performance of the defense like last week, and we have, even if it's, say, in the 30s, I think we have a good chance to beat Rice. I really do.
Speaking of the play of the defense, Matt talks about getting pressure on JT Daniels and obviously testing out that ankle or getting him moving and so forth. But Matt, I know one of the things that Coach Houston was very impressed with the play of the defense against Gardner-Webb was the play of Omar Rogers, the Elon transfer safety. And I know you were as well. And tell us what you saw when you went back and looked at some of that film, in addition to obviously just what you saw live.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny. I noticed this about Omar when I watched his recruiting video, his highlights at Elon. He just seems to be a player that's under control. He seems to have a good understanding, like a good feel, just for what he's doing in his position. And he can definitely make plays. Like, he's got a knack for going up and deflecting balls and high pointing the ball and making some plays. So to me, he just looked like a player who was under control. And I liked overall the changes to the secondary last week. I really liked. I thought there were a lot of positives with Antoine Jackson starting at one corner, Ravel, Omar Rogers, and then Julius Wood, Bubba, to answer your question. So that could be a combination we see more of.
Hey,
I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
By the way, Matt, you bring up a good point that I was going to mention. The two areas that I noticed from last week, and you talked about that, was the secondary. The other was what we talked about on our Pirate Playback. What about also the tweaking they did on the offensive line that was a lot better this week? I know you had Murphy back, but they put Ergel back at center. But between those two adjustments, that might be the ticket that we need to right the ship, so to speak. We'll find out. But what do you guys think about between the secondary and also the offensive line?
Well, we're going to find out more about the offensive line against our AFBS defensive line this week. But Rice's defense has been bad. Their offense has been really good, but their defense has been bad. So I don't know how many yards they're giving up, Bub. I don't know if you have the stats. I know it'll be talked about later with JD from Rice. But
I do. They're giving up approximately 420 yards per game, a little over 420, and then
we should smoke them then.
And then right at 32 points per game, and then some of their numbers on the other side of the ball, pretty alarming in both a good and bad way from their standpoint. They've thrown the ball very efficiently and have a lot of big plays in the passing game, but outside of their performance on the ground against Texas Southern, obviously an FCS opponent, they have not run the ball well at all. They've run for less than 70 yards in each of the other 3 games, and most recently against South Florida, they ran for 1 yard. So,
what a credit to JT Danielson and those receivers.
Yeah, and they've in those 3 games outside of the Texas Southern game, I think they've run for 93 yards on, I'm trying to remember, at least 65 or 70 carries, maybe more. So they're roughly averaging, 1 or 1.2, 1.3 per carry, which is obviously just atrocious. So if we continue to defend the run the way we have thus far, for the most part, obviously App State had a lot of success against us. But otherwise, the Pirates have been pretty stout against the run, and if we can do that and make Rice one-dimensional against what will be less than a 100% JT Daniels, at least from his ankle standpoint, things could look very good for the Pirates.
Yeah, and that answers even more when you give me their running stats. Yeah, JT, if JT is ambulatory, if he can stand up, he'll play because they're clearly relying on him and their receivers for all their offense. But we got to get right on offense too. We don't know how Flynn's shoulder is. That wasn't talked about today at Houston's press conference today. So, I don't even remember them asking anything about the quarterbacks unless I missed something.
But by the way, guys, I had a Pirate fan who you guys know, they'll remain nameless, but who said, this is not from Dave, so this is not my question that I'm trying to disguise. It's actually a legit question. Do you guys think that Mason should, based on the way that he played on last week, I know it's whatever that team was last week.
Gardner Webb.
We're not supposed to say their name anymore.
You guys say it as much as you want. It's all right. It's all right. I'm already it's all good, man.
But based on that, I mean, do you give Mason a little bit more credit, like to start him, or do you, because of Flynn's injury?
Well, I mean, if Flynn is truly injured, yes, of course.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I know there's a difference between, you always hear Matt and Bubba with being a player, between hurt and injured, but obviously he's hurt, but how bad is the injury? And then the question I have is, for my question is, this is my question, is do you take the risk of, when you're talking about JT Daniels, do you take the risk of putting Flynn out there? And I know we want to win ball games, but what I'm saying is at the risk of losing him for the whole season, then that's kind of like your insurance policy. And then you have
what the shoulder injury is. If he's just getting if he's getting like a deep tissue bruise and it's just something like that where the bruise is sore, where it's like a sore kind of thing, then I think I don't really know that you can really make that worse. At some point in the game, he may take a hit and he gets aggravated again. And is his shoulder popping out? I don't know. We don't know what his shoulder injury is. So I guess it depends on what the injury is. If he's throwing the ball like he did in the second quarter late, then you don't play him, because Garcia would be more effective. But I think it depends on what the shoulder injury is and how bad it is.
But my friend, okay, that's my question. My friend is not talking about the injury part of Flynn. He's talking about how that Mason looked better. But I think that's because
better than Flynn, he means, or better than he had been.
No, not better than Flynn.
No, you don't start Garcia over Flynn just because Garcia looked better than he has been looking. No, not unless Flynn's really hurt.
Like, in other words, what his point was is not about Flynn. It's about getting experience for Mason, but you got to win football games at the same time. So,
what about experience for Flynn? I mean, who named Mason Garcia the forever quarterback of East Carolina? Why can't it be Flynn's job? Flynn's got 2 years of eligibility left, right?
I mean,
yes, he's a junior.
I thought Mason, when he came in the second half last week, I thought he looked more comfortable than he has.
Yeah.
And that's great. That's what you want to see. My question is, how much of that is because we're playing
GW
that team, G and W, who I just, again, I'm going to say it again, that those players on Gardner Webb really need to look themselves in the mirror this week, because that was a terrible performance. But I don't know how much to attribute that to Gardner Webb, the fact that we were up big and they were just playing terribly.
I think it's more than that. I don't think it's Gardner Webb. I think it was more that we were up, so he didn't feel pressure.
Maybe, but what about? I mean, it's like that saying: "You damned if you do, damned if you don't." If you don't play him, like, he doesn't get experience. If you do play him and he gets experience, but yet it's not, kind of like Sam Howell on Sunday. Don't get me started about that.
Well, I mean, what about Flynn? I mean, like I say, why is Mason? Is Flynn not an East Carolina Pirate also? I mean, unless Flynn is injured, what has he done to be benched?
That's the thing, is that my thing is not about talent with Flynn. I'm just scared that, I know that's part of football for Bubba and Matt to talk about, but I'm just afraid that if we put him, what I'm saying is, if it's just a little banged up, you understand that's part of football. I'm just saying, if he is hurt more than our coaching staff is letting on, then you put him out there, then he's done for the year.
If he keeps on, look, if he's going to get hit to the shoulder and every week, if it's something where it's going to be an every week thing where we know at some point he's going to take a hit to that shoulder and he's going to start throwing the ball wobbly like he did late against Rice in the second quarter, then you play Mason. Yeah, if it's an injury question. I mean, Matt, what do you? I mean, you wouldn't start Mason over Flynn unless it was an injury situation, would you?
No, right now Flynn's my starter. Obviously, if he's injured to the point where he's struggling to throw the football, then you're looking at it. Obviously, starting Mason. But here's the thing: my opinion on this offense right now in this quarterback situation. Every game, I'm preparing both of those guys to play a lot, and I have no problem rotating back and forth and trying to find the hot hand. So in other words, let's say Flynn starts this game, right? And he comes out and he's 2 for 8 and he's just not accurate. And I have no problem bringing in Garcia in that situation, and vice versa. I'm just trying to find the hot hand and stick with it for that game, because I think that's where we're at. I just don't think either one of them has separated to the point where you can say, this is my starter.
I don't think Rice is that talented on defense. So Flynn is smart. He knows the offense. So if his shoulder is healthy, I think he could probably, if his shoulder is healthy, I think he could have a really nice performance being a game manager against Rice, because he knows the offense. So I don't know that Rice is any more talented on defense than Gardner Webb is, honestly.
That was the thing, fellas, is that the other question I have is if let me do my Kyle, if we're way ahead of Rice, I don't think we will be, but
it's going to be a close game.
I agree, but if for some reason we were, do you put Jeter in? Because Jeter actually looked a lot better he looked way more polished than what I expected to be a true freshman.
Well, you only got 4 games you can play him in. So if let's pretend like JT Daniels doesn't play, or they put him out there in the first quarter and he can't go, and then somehow we are up in the fourth quarter, say 28-10 or 31-10 with 4 minutes to go in the fourth, and you got the ball, maybe, but then again, if you've been playing Flynn all game, at that point, do you put Mason in? Then you're only going to get so many opportunities. You got 4 opportunities you can play the young man without burning this red shirt. So you're not going to have so many. So if you get in a situation like that, maybe, because you done played in 1 game, so you got 3 more opportunities, and there probably won't be that many opportunities. And I don't think that opportunity is going to come this week unless Daniels doesn't play or he goes out in the first quarter.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys, whoever gets the bulk of the action at quarterback for us, it's a great opportunity. We might not see a pass defense this bad for the rest of the year. I mean, if you look at Rice, they're 114th in the country in total defense. They give up 419 yards a game.
Wow.
All right. But you look where it's coming from, and Bubba mentioned this. Most of the yards they give up are in the passing game. They're 119th in pass defense.
What about run defense, Matt?
They give up 275 yards a game through the air. Run defense, Dave, they are 83rd. They give up about 145 a game. So they're pretty
that's probably
susceptible.
because people are throwing on that. It could be a lot because people are throwing on them more. What is their yards per average in the run defense, Matt? Do you see that?
144 they give up per game, and they're 83rd in the country. So, I mean, a lot of opportunities for our offense this week. This is not a great defense we're facing. Now they've played some really good teams. So stats can be deceiving. They played Houston. They've played Texas. They got, I was surprised that South Florida was able to hang that many points on them. That surprised me a little bit. I think that's a good sign for us. But they're definitely susceptible. So whoever the quarterback is, and hopefully Flynn is healthy, it should be an opportunity for a big day.
Yeah, you set up the action. I mean, you set up the obviously, I think with our run game can do very well if the offensive line plays the way they did last week. Then you have the run game. You set that up for the play action, right?
If you get the run game going, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the other thing. How many? I think
we don't do enough of that, Dave. We don't do enough of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of been my issue with this offense this year is we don't do a great job of setting things up. Just moving the pocket, setting up play action. It just seems like we're always trying to find something different. And Kyle used this word a lot in the last show, identity. We haven't found out what our identity is on offense yet. And I just think we need to see more of those things. Play action, move the pocket, set up plays, and that's really kind of what I'm looking for right now.
How about those hitch routes or those bubble screens? Maybe you and Bubba. I mean, to me, when I saw Rajay when they were getting more active as far as wide receivers or the running backs, that to me, that's the kind of stuff I'm like, finally, I was like looking at my phone and watching it on ESPN Plus, and I'm going, why in the world can we not have more of that? And, like, in other words, it seemed to me that things were more creative. It wasn't the same old, like one of our friends on Facebook put, it was said that it was the offense from 1903. After 3 games, that was a comment after the App State game. But for me, there seemed to be more wrinkles that we haven't seen in the offense this past week. And I know it was everybody can say the level of competition, they can say cupcake and all that stuff. We still hung 44, and the defense got a shutout for the first time since 2000. And guys, did you know that our good friend, Terry Gallagher, he was on the 1978 team? The last time the fewest amount of points that we allowed was 1978. So to me, everybody can talk about competition all they want to, but that defense.
You mean yards?
Yeah.
You said points.
Well, okay, total yards. Well, it's talking about total yards. The total yards were that you had to go all the way back to 78. So, and that's one of the best defenses we've ever had is that 78 team. So for me,
Wild Dogs.
Yeah. And during that era. And so it's not the same to compare the eras. I'm just saying that the performance was better than a lot of our fans give it credit for. And the true test, like Matt, like you said, and you guys with the defense is the fact that here you are, you have an FBS opponent. You've never beaten them on the road there at Rice. Here's your chance right now to really, I know I'm going to do my Matt right now. You can make a statement. You can make a statement this week. And all those people that wanted Coach Houston fired and all those people that were in the panic room, it's funny. All of a sudden, guys, we could find ourselves 2-3 and knocking at the door on that game that Bubba wants to see so bad, the SMU game on Thursday night on the 12th.
Yeah, it'd be a big win if we can get it. I mean, it's where we are. Unfortunately, Rice would be a big win, but it would be, and we need to capitalize on it, and we need to go down to Houston and find a way to win. And they're thinking the same thing. They pulled off an upset against Houston. They're 0-1 in conference. They're back at home. In their minds, this is a must-win for them too. So you got two teams that are, in similar situations in terms of needing this ball game. I think we may need it a little worse than they do, but in conference play, they need it if they have any aspirations of playing for a conference championship.
A little bit more about the Rice pass defense, though. Byron Brown, the South Florida quarterback, now struggling against Alabama is one thing, but the first two games, Western Kentucky, 15 out of 34 for 166, a touchdown and 2 picks. Game 2 against Florida A&M, 20 out of 34, 197, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. So not bad numbers at all, but in his first 3 games, he had not thrown for more than 197 yards, and then he goes 22 of 29 for 435 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions against Rice. So he throws for more in that one game, easily more in that game than he did his first 3, and throwing for 435 yards on 22 completions in less than 30 attempts. That was pretty impressive. So hopefully
have you seen any film? Was that deep balls mostly, or was that yards after catch?
He definitely hit some deep balls. I'm not sure as far as it's probably a combination of the two when you throw for that much, but let's hope that happens twice for another passing offense and that has largely struggled. Maybe Alex Flynn and Mason Garcia can put up similar numbers on Saturday night.
I can see it coming right now. You're going to start Flynn. He's going to be playing well. Then you're going to bring Mason in, and they're going to run him a couple times, and he's going to throw a bomb. About an 80-yard touchdown pass. I'm calling it now. Flynn's going to start the game, going to be playing well. You're going to put Mason in. They're going to run him a couple times, and then he's going to throw a bomb. I'm calling it
and
now.
That's something I want to – when Mason is in, and I know we certainly struggled to protect at times, no doubt, but we've heard about Mason's arm. I want to see him off play action and just, uncork one about 55, 60 yards to Josiah Hatfield, even if we don't complete it.
Yeah, I want to see him attempt it, exactly. And I really do believe, though, if Flynn's smart, he knows this offense. And against that pass defense, if Flynn is healthy, I think he could have a breakout type performance numbers-wise against these guys.
Yeah, that would be a great thing is to see Flynn come out and do well. And then you have, like you talked about, maybe they can get a big lead and put Mason in for a while, or do you just keep the guy with the hot hand the entire game?
It's not
like baseball where you bring a pitcher in and then you got to take him out. You can't bring him back in.
It depends on. I think it's going to be a close game. I guess it depends on if we were to get a big lead. But I personally think it's going to be a close game. So I think you got to kind of stick with the hot hand if it's a close game. Yeah, guys, let me ask you, both of you guys, Matt, I don't mean to cut you off, but both of you, Bubba too, being you played quarterback, without knowing what Flynn's shoulder injury is, it's not a situation where he just isn't used to throwing the ball that much, is it? I mean, to be sure, in practice he's getting enough reps. It's not just getting sore because he's getting tired.
Not at all. Now he may. I think it's strictly comes from that App State game where that second good drive of that game, late in the first half, about 2 minutes to go in the half, he ran the ball probably 3 or 4 times on that drive, and I think he sustained a hit or two on that drive, even though it may not have looked like a big blow, but something there. Obviously, because he did not play the final possession of the first half. Mason Garcia came in, and then Alex came back to start the second half. And of course, we didn't have nearly as much success. Just 40 or 45 yards of offense after halftime.
You watched them on the sidelines. They didn't pop your shoulder back in or anything, did they?
Not that I noticed. It was certainly nothing like I saw with Holton last year against NC State, and then again later in the year at Cincinnati, where it was an ongoing thing. I just saw saw him, you could tell he's trying to stretch it out and doing some arm circles and so forth.
Deep tissue bruise, something like that.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's definitely reason for concern, though, because you mentioned it earlier, Kyle. In that second quarter the other night, he was struggling to get the ball out. And at first I thought maybe it was the wet ball. I thought it was the rain. But then he started, one hopping, like a wide receiver screen, which is a relatively easy throw. And then I remember like a 10-yard hitch that didn't even come close to the receiver. That injury could be a little more serious than we know about.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But, we're not going to know because Mike Houston's going to play that close to the vest. And most likely when that game starts, that's going to be the first time we know anything.
It'll be a shame if he can't go. He really will, because I like him against that defense a lot. And I'm not saying Mason can't do it, but Mason's going to have to show us that he can do it. He's going to have to show. I know he's got the ability to do it, but he's going to have to show us that he can actually do it when a game's on the line, not when it's late in the fourth quarter. So,
guys, we got to give JR a cigar or something, maybe his favorite drink. Matt, you got some more drinks for him? You're the great bartender of the Sports
Anytime,
Objective.
JR. Anytime,
look at this. He says Pro Football Focus rates Daniel number 48, Mason number 69, and Flynn number 86 on passing grades. I find that fascinating. I thought it would be between Flynn and Mason. I thought it would be the other way around.
And obviously, I have no doubt that those are the real numbers and that's factual information, but that's an example of statistics lying. I mean, that you can use statistics. I mean, and that's not a shot at Mason whatsoever. It's just because Mason, played very well the other night, 9 out of 12, and did some nice things. Looked a little more comfortable, and I know that's with the 30-point lead against the FCS team, but still, it's great to see. And Coach Houston talked about that on his radio show and then also today at his press conference, perhaps. But, Alex had several drops as well. So that factors into Mason having a 58 completion percentage compared to just 50 for Alex.
That's one thing I really want to see this week, Bubba. I really want to see us get through a game with no drops. These drops are killer. There were several big plays last week. The very first possession comes to mind on an RPO slant to Sowell over the middle. That would have been a first down. And then even there was a play late in the game where Mason scrambled to his left. Rajay was it looked like he was just kind of in scramble mode. And Mason threw a very nice ball to Rajay, dropped right in his hands, but he wasn't able to bring it in. We're having too many drops like that.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do it against a team like we played last week, but when you're playing a team like this that can score a lot of points, we have got to clean up those drops. It's just too often. It's too many. And the coaching staff's talking about it, right, Bubba?
No doubt. And then that's something Mason, as you just pointed out, has certainly had multiple passes dropped as well. But you also, when Mason's in the game, because of, where he is in his development, the play calling's a little bit different. We know we can throw the ball down the field a little bit more with Alex than we've been able to up to this point with Mason. So you have to take that into consideration, perhaps a few more underneath throws and some easier completions and on throws to running backs and things of that nature. And but hopefully whichever, or if we see both, they'll perform well on Saturday night, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys that very thing. Is that, do you think? My question is, do you think that Houston? I've been wanting to ask you this 2 weeks, and it just dawned on me. I'm getting old, guys. I forgot to ask you this. But do you think that Houston is finally realizing that I better get my quarterbacks in to like in the old days under Logan, because they failed the quarterbacks. You hear that so much this year because we had Holton for 5 years, that they didn't get any work in for Garcia, except for the Navy game in 2020. Jeter wasn't with the program, so it doesn't matter. But do you guys feel that way, that maybe that they're learning a lesson? They say, hey, we've got to get the guys in, not Jeter because he's under the red shirt, that you don't want to burn that unless all hell breaks loose.
Well, besides Jeter, the other two are in the mucks of a quarterback competition. So, I don't think anything's been settled yet 100%. So, yeah, you need to keep playing them both. I did find it interesting they put Jeter in. That did surprise me. Did that surprise you guys the other night, Matt, Bubba?
I was surprised on one hand, just kind of based on history and, like you said, getting some more reps for Mason. But Matt, how about you?
I liked it. I liked it. I wanted to try to get a look at Jeter, and in that very small sample size, I was impressed with what I saw in terms of he looks like a really fluid athlete to me. He's got really good size, and he looked comfortable, I thought. So, you get the 4 games before you burn your red shirt, so I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was kind of fun to see what he had to offer.
And I was going to add that
I liked it. I was just saying it more from the angle that I was a little surprised that we did it. Not that I disagreed with doing it, because, like you said, you get those 4 games, and that's kind of, I understand we were in a lot of close games, and there really weren't a ton of opportunities for Mason to get that time. But the couple times that those opportunities did present themselves, whether it's 2021 Temple or last year, and I know he played against Campbell, but that game was well in hand, and I thought he could have probably gotten in a little bit earlier than what he did. But yes, I'm all for getting those guys snaps whenever the opportunity's right, and then if they're prepared for it, like Coach Logan did with a Dan Gonzalez or a David Garrard when Bobby Weaver was starting early on in Garrard's time as a Pirate, and then also Richard Austin with David Garrard.
Yeah, you have that very fact that's what my point is about. Have they learned their lesson? Because you have the 4 games like we talked about. You have a tremendous lead. They're not coming back on us. And I think that getting those reps in now for Jeter, I think he has the potential to be a starter here. And, kids today, like Matt is always looking, he's our transfer portal expert.
If you guys go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say quickly that he's our transfer portal expert. So these kids are not waiting around to, we talk about development all the time, but at the same token, they want playing time. And so if you show a kid, hey, you're doing well, you're learning the playbook, you're doing everything we ask you, and we're going to be careful not to burn the red shirt unless we absolutely desperately have to. I thought it was great because the kid I didn't expect him to. I'm not saying that he's a great quarterback like right now, experience-wise. I'm just saying he looked way better than what I expected.
Well, he looked more comfortable and with a bunch of backups in than you would expected. If you haven't listened to the 5th quarter, go back and listen to it. Anybody out there? Not that we're advertising for Pirate Radio, but it became a trend on that show, a running joke, an inside joke. The different quarterbacks they were comparing Jeter to, it was tremendous. They were, people were comparing him to Marcus Crandall, James Pinckney, Brett Favre. It was fantastic.
And then it even evolved into a Chuck Norris kind of thing, as far as Raheem Jeter is saving babies from burning buildings, etc.
Yeah, it was great. But I listened to that today at work. It was amusing. But no, a couple things about playing Jeter. One, I don't think you either one of the quarterbacks has solidified themselves as being the guy going forward. Meaning for years to come. So transfer portal's a thing. So yeah, you maybe have that in mind with Jeter. You want to make sure you keep him happy. Two, going back to Flynn's shoulder, there's two schools
Right.
of thought. We thought we were going to get Mason more snaps because he might have to play more if Flynn's shoulder is bad. Then it makes me wonder. So that makes me think, well, maybe his shoulder ain't that bad if they brought Jeter in. Then I thought about it the other way. Maybe one of his shoulders worse, and that's why they felt the need to get Jeter playing time. Hopefully, it had nothing to do with Flynn's shoulder. They were just getting the kid playing time.
I'll tell you one thing, fellas. Like, regardless of who plays quarterback and who's healthy and this and that, one thing I really am dying to see this week, Kyle from LaGrange Barber, is we have to get Shane Calhoun involved in the offense.
Yeah,
I agree.
So he doesn't drop a pass.
This is the thing, right? You have younger or less experienced quarterbacks, and you have a lot of drops happening. All right, almost every single game. You have your most sure-handed receiver, in this case, a tight end, Shane Calhoun.
He's a big target.
Wouldn't you want to get him the ball? Wouldn't you want to get him the ball? I mean, to me, it just makes no sense. Like, if I'm Shane Calhoun right now, I'm very frustrated with the lack of targets my way. I just feel like we need to get more creative and really get him involved in the offense because he's a weapon that's not being utilized.
Guys, did you see how many times he was wide open? He was wide open a lot. And we're talking about being the tight end is a mismatch there. And I tell you another thing, you were talking about, you guys were right on the money about drops, how many drops we've had this year. That dude does not drop passes. I can't think of off the top of my head.
Well, you're jinxing him, Dave.
Not intentionally. He's not Butterfingers. Let's just put it that way.
You got to get the ball in his hands more. I agree 100%. And we got some weapons. Yeah, I think you look. You got to get the ball in his hands more. You got to get the ball in Jalen Johnson's hands more. You got to get the ball.
Soul.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Soul. He.
Davies Bond is. Are you
Bond is a guy? Yes. You got to get him. You pass it to him in space. Get him in open space.
You know that with that Bond kid, he, not to say he's the same, but you remember when we had Dwayne Harris and you put him out and you give him one of those bubble screens and you create space for him. That's the thing for me is that a kid like Bond, Rajay Harris, like if it's close to the goal line, I can see doing it. But as far as like Bond, you give him one of those short passes and that dude can he is lightning fast. I've been really impressed with how fast he is.
Yeah, we got to throw him the ball more. Now, one thing I will say to Rajay, and he did have that drop from Mason. Rajay does have pretty good hands. He catches the ball pretty well.
Yeah, you could tell that he was really mad at himself that it was right there.
Yeah, and he normally does a pretty good job for a running back catching the ball. I love throwing it to the running back. If I was offensive coordinator, fans would probably get aggravated with me about how often I would throw it to the running backs.
So, back to the Calhoun topic, I wanted to ask Bubba a question since Bubba was a quarterback. I mean, Bubba, when you're a young quarterback who's trying to find your way in an offense, I would think the first thing you really want to do is find a safety valve, somebody who you can depend on, somebody who you can always check it down to.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the guy. And it's just, it's very bizarre to me, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's one of the things that, multiple offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches of mine, really stressed and impressed upon me. Not only is a good running game the quarterback's best friend, but in the passing game, don't forget your check down, and the tight end can be the quarterback's best friend. Oftentimes forgot about. Something I like to see us do with Shane is, or a couple things, when we utilize tempo the way we did early against Gardner-Webb, it's something that Lincoln Riley would do. I remember when we went up tempo against North Carolina in 2014, he lined up Bryce Williams as a tackle and slipped him down the seam. I'd like to see us do something like that, maybe line him up, Shane Calhoun, that is, tackle eligible, so to speak. And then also a tight end delay. A tight end delay can be, very effective, where you're blocking or you appear to be blocking 1,001, 1,002, and then you release. Something like that would be potentially very effective as well.
No doubt about it. We have Bubba. I know you have
also tight end screen. So sorry, Dave.
No, I was just going to pitch it to you. I know from a viewer we have a question. I was going to pitch that to you.
All right. Well, let's see. Where is it? Okay. I don't see if you can find it. We'll come back to it.
I've got it.
All right.
The question is, how are the players going to react to coaching this week? So that's a question I'll pitch to you guys.
Yeah, that was submitted to us via text by Tom Earnhardt.
I think they're going to quit the team.
Appreciate Tom chiming in. Obviously, this team, after the 0-3 start, handled that very well. Most people thought it would be a fairly competitive game against Gardner-Webb. We came out, and it was never close. It was never in doubt. And so that showed me a lot. And Coach Houston, very impressed. And obviously, he's not going to say negative things publicly, but he's probably a little more forthright in certain situations than most. And I think that this team will handle its first small taste of success, and I emphasize small taste of success because it is an FCS opponent. I think they're hungry to get conference play off on the right foot against Rice, and I don't think it'll be any concern at all. What do you think, Matt? Because you obviously were on that 97 team where not much success early in the season, but that many people on that roster had been a part of a lot of success in 94, 95, and 96, or at least one of those years. And then you were able to reel off 4 wins in the last 5 games.
Yeah, I mean, that was tough. I can tell you guys that is the year we went up to the Carrier Dome and we got smoked at Syracuse, and that was probably one of the most embarrassing, definitely the most embarrassing games I've ever been a part of. And I can tell you, practice that week was not fun. It was intense. There was definitely some finger pointing going on. I had my own issues that week with defensive coordinator Paul Jett. Love you, Coach, but definitely had my issues that week with him personally. So those things do go on. But, I think it's still early enough in the season, and this is a team that they're still trying to find their way. So what they need to do is stick together. Stick together, don't point fingers, keep working towards the common goal. And that's really what you have to do, because once guys start pointing fingers and doing the blame game and bringing negativity into the locker room, that's when things can start to fall apart. And I don't think we're near that point yet. So I feel pretty confident that the team's in a good spot.
Yeah. And after a win, Matt and Bubba both, but after wins, the old adage that you always hear that the coaches can actually be tougher on you after a win. Is that true, Matt? Does that hold up?
It definitely can be. I mean, it definitely can be. You kind of see over the course of a season, you kind of see a little bit of everything. Coaches trying to pull out every trick to motivate their team. And I've definitely seen that where you're coming off a win, coaches will be even tougher, or sometimes, they'll give you a little pat on the back. But you kind of see a little bit of everything.
My question, I'm sorry, Bubba, go ahead.
Yeah, like Matt's saying, coaches can definitely, just to, I remember Coach Logan, and obviously this was at a press conference, but many of those guys, Matt's teammates and otherwise, that played for Coach Logan from 92 to 02 during those 11 years, addressed that when we had them on the show, just talking about how Coach Logan was in practice after a win, just making sure that they were focused. After beating Miami, I remember John McMillan, who he did not play for Coach Logan. Obviously, he's an East Carolina alum from back in the the mid 70s, but he became fairly close friends with Coach Logan and his parents. And he was just saying that after that game against Miami at Carter Finley, that he was exchanging a few words with Coach, and Coach was already talking about, he said, we can't let this linger. We have to get ready for Army.
Yeah. And, you know, guys, there was a question after the App State game, and I don't think I addressed it on the Pirate Preview, but there were a lot of people that I was talking to at work in different places, and has the coach lost the locker room? The way that they played on Saturday night, I think it answered that question. That, you know, if he had really lost the locker room, they wouldn't play that way. I mean, don't you guys think that? I mean, that's.
I don't. I never.
I didn't think. I thought it was very dramatic of a thing. I didn't think that we were at that point.
No. The defense, you know, the defense certainly looked, you know, as good as they could possibly look Saturday night, and the offense seemed to feed off that. And that's, and we got the interview that Bubba did earlier that we're going to go to in a minute. But and that's talking about creating an identity. I think what our identity in a lot of ways may have to be is for offense to feed off the defense. And I guess that goes without saying. I'm playing complementary football, but to me, when you force a turnover or we get a 3 and out, I think at those times you got to tell the offense, we got to score now. Defense just forced a turnover. Defense just got a 3 and out. We got to score now. I think that maybe has to kind of be what our identity is going to be. We're an offense that feeds off what the defense gives us, and you can win a lot of football games doing that. If you can convince those guys, hey, you know, we just forced a turnover. Hey, defense just got a 3 and out. Go capitalize, and they just, you know, they just. Yeah. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say makes sense.
Yeah, especially Matt and Bubba, when the guys, when you think about it, all these games are 50-50 games. I know I've said that a lot, 50-50 games, but Kyle brings up a great point, is if they're 50-50 games and you know they're going to be tight, you have less and less opportunities. You can't keep blowing your opportunities, especially if you think about it. One of the issues for me is that the offense has played not well, and you're putting that defense right back on the field, you know? So if nothing else, you're helping out the defense by letting them rest and not have a 3 and out. I mean, just over and over again, every once in a while score. You need to have long. That's one thing I'll give credit to Houston. If you can get that running game going, that long sustained drives, then the defense plays even better. Don't you think, Matt? Less pressure on the defense.
Absolutely. Complementary football, you know, and, you know, Ruffin McNeil used to talk about this a lot. This was always like a big topic for him in his press conferences, complementary football, where, you know, no different from when you get a 3 and out, right? You want to capitalize offensively, or if you get a turnover in plus territory, you want to capitalize on that. You know, same thing with the special teams. So, you know, exactly. The fourth side of the ball. That's right.
Yeah. I can hear Ruffin in my head right now, Matt.
Yeah. That was great. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, Ruffin, I'll do my Ruffin real quick, then we'll go to the interview. But let's see. Well, if anybody else got something to say, but I remember Ruffin. He would go. You got to play complementary football again. You know, you got all 3 sides of the ball: offense, defense, special team. You got to feed off each other. There's actually 4 sides of the ball because it's the sideline. So you all got to feed off each other.
Hey, yo, KB, what's going on, brother?
I'm just impersonating you, Coach.
That's good, Bubba. Yeah, Bubba, we're doing the Pirate Preview, and I know earlier this afternoon you had a chance to talk to the play-by-play voice, right?
I did. JP Heath, longtime play-by-play voice of the Rice Owls, and we caught up with him, and let's go ahead and go to that conversation right now. He and I chatted for right around a half hour talking about the Owls joining the American and the Pirates and Owls meeting on the gridiron for the first time since 2010. Athletic Conference. Welcome into the show for the first time, JP Heath. JP, we appreciate your time.
Howdy. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
No doubt. I'm glad to have you on. Like I said, first time on the show. We've been covering East Carolina athletics for about 6 years. Doing this, certainly a labor of love, but glad to have you on to talk about the Pirates and the Owls doing battle at Rice Stadium Saturday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN Plus. But as you take a look at Mike Bloomgren's ball club, 2-2. It seems like kind of a mixed bag from at least afar. You led Texas after a quarter, and from that point on, it was largely all Longhorns. But then you picked up that thrilling double overtime win, which was a tale of two halves against the Houston Cougars. You blew out FCS foe Texas Southern 59-7, and then you had a late lead in the third quarter against South Florida before the Bulls came out victorious. So if you would, kind of tell us about the first four games of the Rice season.
Well, like you said, outside of the scores, the storyline coming into the year was Coach Bloomgren's sixth season and getting JT Daniels at quarterback, and just seeing him navigate. He struggled in the first game, Rice against, obviously, what's proved now a really good Texas team. Rice did a few good things, but the interior was too big of a matchup, and played Texas close for a lot, but let a lot of possession stall in the red zone. And then going in that next game against the Cougars, double overtime, it was everything that you would think a rivalry game should be, and it lived up to that billing. And Rice knocked away a 2-point conversion try in the second overtime and beat the Cougs crosstown rivalry. So a lot of juice and vitriol involved in that one. And Daniels was much better in that one. And in the game against TSU, it went about as you would expect. The Owls really ran the ball well in that game, and they won 59-7. And then last week at South Florida, man, a tale of like 2.5 quarters versus the last quarter and a half. The final score was not indicative of how close that game it was for most. There's 5 lead changes in the first 2.5 quarters. Daniels, again, was spectacular. He's a friggin' magician, man. He was pulling stuff out of the hat, and he got dinged up later in the game. We hope to have him back this week, and all signs are pointing to him coming back again, but just gave up too many big plays. I think I saw the nugget that there were 5 plays that were over 40 yards, and South Florida receiver Simmons set the school record in receiving yards, and it was just one of those games where they felt like they left a lot of meat on the bone, is the way Coach Bloomgren described it today at his presser. So that's kind of the 3-minute extended version, but it's been a largely positive first season. Now, you're not really the sum of what your last game is, but when you look on a whole, it's still been a productive season so far. But I know that there's so much of the season left too.
Right. Big storyline that we talked about with Matthew Bartlett leading into the season. JT Daniels, so highly acclaimed, coming in from West Virginia. Obviously began his career at USC, then the time at Georgia where he was the starter for some of those games. But JT Daniels, from afar, it looks like he's largely lived up to the hype.
Yeah, it's hard to, I'm trying to think of something that's not another sports analogy, but those point guards that make everybody better. The quarterback in this case, hey, genius, there's your great analogy. But he just makes so many of his receivers better. Going into that last game, he had 6 different receivers catch balls of 30 yards or more. Tied his career high in passing, or passed his career high in passing. In the last 3 weeks, he's had 2 career high games. So he keeps passing his great expectations that are already high coming in. And when he went out, you saw a stark change when AJ Padgett came in. But I mean, he was the number 1 overall recruit in the nation if you go back a few years, and much ballyhooed. If you read the kind of bio pieces on him, The Athletic had a good long one from a great author named Sam Kahn a few weeks ago. He fits in well here at Rice. We do a lot of things differently around here, and he's so cerebral, and he's a guy that is cracked up to what the billing. He makes a lot of guys better, and just hope that we have a lot of more games with him in this season.
East Carolina head coach Mike Houston talking about A.J. Padgett said that, JT Daniels is certainly a NFL caliber arm and has thrown for over 1,200 yards, but A.J. Padgett certainly very capable of guiding this offense. So tell us a little more about him and what he brings to the table.
Yeah, he would be the guy if, for whatever reason, Daniels is not able to go on Saturday. Every indication is that he will be ready. Padgett started the bowl game against Southern Miss, threw for 290 yards, and he's not the deep ball threat or the obviously the big cannon. It's hard to compare anybody to JT, but AJ doesn't have that deep range on the long ball, but he's been accurate. And keep in mind, this is a guy who's a true freshman last year, started 2 games late in the year, the season finale game, and then that bowl game I mentioned when Rice was going through the turnstile at quarterback. So very heady kid. His teammates voted him the top freshman on the team last year with what he went through. So he was kind of ahead of the curve last year, being thrust into that duty when they went to their 4th different starting quarterback in the season. But now he's caught up. Things have slowed down a bit for him. And thinking is, if Rice didn't go to the portal next year, Padgett would be QB1 or 1A, at least be in the battle for that starting spot next year. So while he's no JT Daniels, the coaching staff obviously has a lot of confidence in him.
One of the guys that they had to distribute the ball to is certainly Luke McCaffrey. Leads the team, 20 receptions, 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, 18.5 yards per reception. East Carolina head coach Mike Houston raved over McCaffrey, just saying that and the Pirates have played a very strong schedule with the likes of Michigan, Marshall, and App State prior to Gardner-Webb, and just saying that Luke McCaffrey is quite possibly the best receiver East Carolina's faced thus far.
Yeah, that's interesting to know, to hear what other coaches not only think, but how he stacks up. And I would say, I definitely would cede to coach the football knowledge, the X's and O's, of course. But man, McCaffrey is special. Originally the starting quarterback, for those that don't know the backstory, Christian McCaffrey's younger brother, Ed McCaffrey, for us old timers, we remember him winning Super Bowls for the Broncos and played for the Bucs too. So he's what's a good way to put it? He's as elite an athlete as it gets at our level. Okay. I'm not saying he's the best receiver in college football, and man, I might need to slap my hand here. It might not be far off, but he is as quick and as athletic as any guy I've ever seen. And we've had some good receivers here in the past, but the other thing is he's an outstanding human being. He's got high character, treats everybody the same. He's uber competitive. So he's got that gene. So he is able to stretch. And the thing I was thinking about this, because I was thinking, I wonder what Bubba's going to talk about. And surely I knew McCaffrey would come up, and this hit me for the first time. So you're getting this original thought here, Bubba. But the way McCaffrey is able to not rush things, he doesn't panic, and he doesn't, if he doesn't have a couple catches in the first quarter, it's not a big deal. If he's only got 1 catch middle of the second, it's not a big deal. But he can get a bunch of catches in a row. I encourage any fans out there to look at he got the National Catch of the Week against the Cougars, where he reached behind the Cougars DB that was right in his lap and made the catch. He had another one-handed grab last week. So he's 10 out of 10 as far as an athlete, and 10 out of 10 as far as a human being. And I'm sure the ECU DB coaches in DC are losing some sleep over Luke, because he is quite the test out there. And he's developed a lot of chemistry with JT Daniels too.
I mentioned how Luke's averaging 18.5 yards per reception. You look at, a lot of these Owls receivers, Dean Connors, 16 for 194, 2 touchdowns. Braylon Walker, 8 for 178, 2 touchdowns. And there are others, you see 17, 18, 19 yards per reception. If you would elaborate a little on the Owls' ability to make big plays in the passing game, because the running game outside of that game against Texas Southern has largely struggled.
Yeah, spade a spade, man. That's the way it is. That's the number one thing we've been talking about quite candidly behind the scenes. How do you get the running game going? And Connors is one of those backs. He led the team in rushing against the Cougars and led the team in receiving. And today at Coach Bloomgren's presser, he joked about calling Dean, "You're kind of my passing back." He's not the running back, but he's a receiving back. I guess the actual literal term that he said, because he has those big catches in a big sequence. Like I said earlier, when the game was really close there in Tampa last week, the Owls forced a turnover and recovered it, got a touchback, got the ball back at the 20 in a tense part of the game. First play, bam, Dean went 80 yards for a touchdown. So what Rice is not getting in the running game, they're making up for and getting some extra yards in the passing game. Now, I don't want folks to, one, I don't want them to think I'm excuse making, because I'm not that type of guy. But two, what Coach Bloomgren says is, just because we want to run the ball better, we have to run it in certain situations. But if it's 20-80 run to pass, or if it's 30-70, he said this in the presser, I'm okay with that. And he said, I've got to adjust my thinking with that. It's kind of a modern analytical thought. Yards are yards, essentially. So while he wants to run the football a lot more, the things they've been able to work up with Connors in the passing game has really offset that. Also in the wide receiving core, Rossi McNeil had a career-high game, 6 catches. They've got a receiver, Matt Sykes, who hasn't done too much lately, but he's a big body. They think a lot about his future. But yeah, you mentioned Braylon Walker as well, too. He'll get a gob of yards. You blink and you look up, and he's got a 25, 30-yard catch. So it's mainly those guys. Rice uses the tight end, too. Bowden Groon has been a popular target for JT. And Kobe Campbell missed last week, but he's been a deep threat for the Owls this year, too. So, yeah, they've stretched the ball downfield a lot more, and they've hoped that that will play out in the long run, too, that the big threat in the medium to deep passing game can offset some of their struggles in the running game so far.
And tell us about the offensive line. As you mentioned, throwing the ball a large percentage of the time, without the success in the ground game. So how has the offensive line held up? Has it been a matter of, they've pass blocked very well, but not so much as far as the run blocking?
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, to be blunt, but excuse me. And Coach said that we've got to win our one-on-ones. He said there will be a situation where they're just a small fraction away from having a big gain, but it hasn't been there. And they're missing their left tackle the last couple of games, Clay Servin. He's expected to be back coming up this week. But up the middle, they've got Braden Nutter. He slid over to play center for the first time. They've got Brant Banks, who was Luke McCaffrey's roommate at Nebraska, and he's playing left guard. Lavelle Dumont was a transfer from Toledo, one of the best players in the Tampa area coming out of high school. And Ethan Onianwa is the right tackle. And all the pundits and all the experts that you believe that know about such draft things, Ethan is amazing guy too, bioengineering major. I couldn't do one thing right on the athletic side, much less the academic, old state school guy here. But Ethan is another one of those good character guys, but he'll be playing this game for a long time. They just haven't had the good stretch out of the game against FCS TSU. They allowed 4 sacks in the first 3 games, but then against a pretty good defensive line in USF, they allowed 4 sacks. So they're still looking for that consistency on the offensive line. But the way Daniels has been able to maneuver things, I guess I said this ad nauseum in a couple answers ago, the quick passing game has been able to offset some of those struggles that have come in the on the offensive line blocking side of things.
Shifting over to take a look at the defense, and tell us about how the Owls approach it from a defensive standpoint, I see by the numbers you're giving up, I want to say 140, 145 yards per game on the ground, 3.9 yards per carry. So not great, not terrible either. So they've been decent against the run, giving up 420 yards overall, 31.8 points per game. I see some names such as Morrison, Coco, and Carroll stood out.
Yeah, Coco's been a great addition on the defensive line. DeBraylon Carroll, who I've gotten to know pretty well, he was at the podium today for Rice. And a little factoid, I didn't know all those guys are working on their MBA at Rice. So they've got noggins on them. And Josh Piercy led the team in sacks last year, co-captain. He's on the other side. Carroll gets a lot of that push on the D-line. And Coco was an all-Patriot League first-team guy. He's probably been their most consistent guy getting pressure off the edge this year. But yeah, they've given up. The big issue, though, has been the big play versus the pass. I think I said this a few minutes ago. They were just getting beat up top too much. And Coach Bloomgren conceded that they just did not handle the tempo as well as they should have when South Florida snapping it 7 to 9 seconds. And that accumulated, and they gave up a lot of big plays over the top. So in the phrase that was said a couple of times today by Coach, you got to play better from the top down. So I think if they can negate some of the potential deep threat from ECU, I think that would make the numbers look even better. But on a whole, this has been a very sturdy defense. That was what made last week pretty strange. And I don't know if it was all the tempo, but Rice's defense had been the calling card the first few games. They lived even above expectations these first few weeks. But yeah, you mentioned the linebacking core. Conti, guy Tyson Flowers has played well lately. Play Wyatt in that extra kind of hybrid linebacker safety. The Owls call it their Viper position. He's played really well too. But their safeties, a guy named JoJo Jean switched over from corner. He's made some good plays. Sean Fresh. He is he's been thrown at some, and even last week, but he's a really good cover corner. And Trayshawn Devone's on the other side. So they've just got to do better against the deep ball this year and get back to as the sturdy defense that they were in that first part of the season.
Yeah, definitely an intriguing matchup. As I'm sure you've found out in your prep for this game, East Carolina has struggled to create explosive plays this year on offense, and you could probably count the number of passes the Pirates have on one hand through 4 games, plays that is over 20 yards in the passing game, and plays in general for that matter. So, yeah, definitely an East Carolina offense where you've had to be very consistent and drive the ball the length of the field, because those explosive plays that the Pirates had last year with the likes of Keaton Mitchell are certainly absent thus far. But also want to mention the special teams. I see your kicker, just 4 attempts through 4 games. He's 2 for 4 with a long of 48. And then also, tell us about your punter and what you present as far as your coverage units and return units.
Tim Horn is the kicker you were talking about. He missed 2 field goals last week at USF, and that by no means was the reason that they lost in the game specifically. It didn't help things, but it wasn't the reason. He had come in. He was just the kickoff guy last year, but he's been handling both duties. The punter is Connor Hunt. Weird thing is they're both Hawaii guys, and Dean Connors, who we talked about, also has that Hawaii connection too. That's kind of a weird mashup how it all came together that way. But Hunt was an all-conference punter at Georgetown, and he's been sturdy for them. He's averaged in the mid-40s this year and only had 1 touchback. And Horn has been a really good kickoff guy, but just looking to get in his groove on the placement side of things. Been perfect on PATs. They've also got a young guy named Enoch Goda, who is a former soccer star here in the Houston area. He's been kicking. He was lights out in the on the kickoff side of things against Texas Southern. and I'll credit you, no one ever asked about the return game side of things. I'm going to my spotting board now, and just to as far as the coverages, but Sean Fresh in returns, they just don't get a lot of returns. I always yap. I feel like an old man shaking my fist at a cloud. They just don't get a lot of return opportunities. So Fresh will return some punts, but and of course I didn't put it on this sheet here, but he only has a handful of actual punt returns on the season, and he hasn't broken one yet. But Fresh, the main guy. Dean Connors, the Hawaii speedster we talked about earlier, he'll be back there some too. Luke McCaffrey every now and then would be back there returning some kicks and punts, but mainly it's been Fresh. And on the coverage side, Chike Anabogu is their best special teams coverage guy. He's a co-captain. He also plays backing up to Myron Morrison, their second leading tackle in the linebacking core. But Chike has been a special teams dynamo the last few seasons. And Owls practice a lot of flexibility in that sense. They play a lot of their two deep guys on special teams, and they've got a new special teams coordinator, Pete Alomar, who Coach Bloomgren calls one of the best in the nation. And he came over from Stanford, not with Coach, but just this first year. And he's regarded with his units among the best in the country. So Owls have always been pretty sturdy on special teams. They're just trying to get it more consistent on the kicking side of things.
Appreciate your time, JP. A couple more questions for you. Taking a look at the big picture of Rice Athletics and coming back into a league with East Carolina and some familiar names back 12 to 15 years ago from the Conference USA days. The last time these programs met was back in Ruffin McNeil's first year when Rice blew out the Pirates there at Rice Stadium in 2010. But, what's the general thoughts of, early returns on the American?
Oh, it's amazing. I liked it because first off, I was really stunned in the offseason and saddened, and deepest condolences extended to the Pirate family for Jeff Charles passing away, because I got to know him pretty well when I started broadcasting Rice baseball. And when I was doing Rice football and basketball and still had known Jeff forever, that just crushed me. But having those types of relationships across the conference with other folks reunited, it's been great. And from a regionality sense, is that right? You think the Rice guy would have great grammar, but playing SMU, I guess for now, but having Tulane in there, UTSA coming back over, we've got a little I-10 dust up with them brewing. I love it. I love having that regionality again and having some of that old flavor, like you guys, I'm sure will kick up some dust there with Charlotte, and having some of those rivalries renewed or start in whoever that would be. So I love it. I'm all in favor of it. And I think I counted it, not singularly, I typed it into my computer to wonder how many days it had been, but 702 days from the time the announcement till we finally got to play our first American game last week, and so glad to be in the American. It's been fun in the small sample size, and can't wait for the future as well.
Final thing for you, any Pirate fans who may be traveling to Houston for the game this weekend, what's a spot or two? What are some things that they should take in, be it a restaurant, perhaps, a local establishment, or some other sites they should see?
Finally, you get to the most important question, Bubba, the first for the last.
Exactly. Save the best for last.
Yeah, come on. Now, what are we talking? I'm going to talk some trash towards the end. You've been so generous letting me come on your show. Do you want the real Texas barbecue? None of that North Carolina stuff, or do you want some good Tex-Mex? You want to give you some of both? How do you want to do
some
it?
of both? Some of both. Let's go some of your barbecue, and then also some Tex-Mex would be great as well.
If you're willing to drive a bit south on 288, my favorite barbecue place anywhere is Killen's Barbecue. Truth Barbecue in the Heights. That's more north. That's a little bit north. I'm a guy, I don't mind traveling for some good grub. So Killen's Barbecue north. And Truth Barbecue north and Killen's Barbecue a little bit south. It's about a 30-minute drive from Houston, but everything in Houston's at least 30 minutes away. The Pit Room closer to Rice Stadium, kind of the Midtown area. The Pit Room is really good. It's kind of got the Tejano flavor. In Bel Air, here you're catching me, Blood Brothers, closer to Rice Stadium. So if you're looking for more of a pregame meal, Blood Brothers in Bel Air. Langford Grocery is really good. There's two different locations. The original, the new Langford Grocery is in Bel Air. The old kind of wobbly floor Langford Grocery might be tough to get into on a Saturday, but that's closer, more up towards downtown. Tex-Mex, we probably don't have enough episodes to cover all that, but I'd say El Tiempo Cantina would be the if you're looking for some good high dollar Tex-Mex in there too. So, man, you're making me work here. I had to go deep in the reservoir there.
Appreciate the recommendations and appreciate the time. We'll certainly look forward to having you back on. Hopefully, are you the voice in basketball as well?
Yeah, if they keep me around. 12th year doing this, 16th year of baseball. I saw, not to ruin too many things, I don't know if it's been released yet, but we're coming there for baseball at the end of the year. So, football, basketball, baseball, coaches shows as well. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for let me come on.
Yeah, appreciate the little breaking news. Baseball scheduling tidbit there. Obviously, as you know, Pirate fans love their baseball. And if you've done it 16 years, you'll recall when these programs were in the league before, and we hosted the Conference USA tournament at Clark LeClaire Stadium. Here's hoping the Owls get back to where they were under Coach Graham on the diamond. But, tell folks how they can follow you on social media, formerly Twitter, now X, as you see there at the top of the screen.
Yeah, at Rice House Voice, my Rice account, and I'm a crazy Cowboys fan, so I keep some of my Cowboys and Rangers rants on my personal Twitter, Mr. Texas JP. Also have a little bitty podcast, The Texas Porch, as well too. We talk barbecue, Bubba, as well. That's how I was able to go deep in the recesses of the noggin. But yeah, thanks for allowing me to share that too.
Appreciate you spending a half hour with us, and we'll catch up with you during basketball season.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
That is JP Heath, the play-by-play voice of the Rice Owls. Appreciate him spending a half hour with us this afternoon, taking a look at this matchup between the Pirates and the Rice Owls on Saturday night, 7 o'clock kickoff, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, from Rice Stadium, the storied stadium. Very small crowd will likely be on hand. That's typically the case. But that is a stadium that has quite a bit of history, having hosted a Super Bowl. And so that is a venue that would be neat to go to, despite many times not having a very large crowd and much of an atmosphere. But appreciate JP's time and look forward to having him back to talk some basketball here in the next couple months. That will do it for us tonight on our Pirate Preview. We'll join you later in the week. We'll have just another sports podcast in addition to Sonny and Semenza headed your way on Wednesday night, and then quite possibly some other content between now and Saturday. And then, of course, Sunday we'll have our Pirate football playback, where we take a look back at what will hopefully be a win in the season opener for the Pirates against Rice. But for Dave Richmond, Kyle Barber, and Matt Semenza, you've been watching and listening to the Sports Objective Podcast. I'm Bub Rosenbaum, and we'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Pirates.
I'm a pirate down to my soul, and I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode, from the sidelines down to the post. Put it down like not even close, all out to the last whistle blow. From the flag with the soul and crossbones. Everybody stand up, get your hands up, let a team know that we got they back. This is our house, this is our town, our time, Rebel 19, copy that. Everybody in the stands go bananas, scream loud, baby, don't hold back. Every foot, every yard, every first down, every touchdown with the cannons blast. Get it on, get it all, get the